Good evening, welcome. This is Hot Edition. We're live from our news hub at Adisawe Kanda, also live on 3FM927 on Facebook, also on Instagram and on X. We're live on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale and beyond, and on W93.5 in Wa and beyond. I am Alfred Ocansey.
I'm Grace Hammoah Agyemang.
This evening, with the Supreme Court set to deliver its anticipated ruling on the controversial subject of vacant seats in Parliament tomorrow, presidential candidate of the NDC, John Dramani Mahama, says President Akufo Addo should have intervened, initiating a dialogue between leaders of both caucuses in this 8th Parliament. We'll hear from John Mahama on this.
Also tonight, latest Global Info Analytics poll suggests only 28% of voters approve of President Akufo Addo's performance, while a resounding 65% express disapproval. Meanwhile, NDC's John Mahama remains the favorite among voters if elections were held today.
Also, and the High Court has lifted an injunction on Memphis Central NDC candidate Joanna Kujo. We'll tell you exactly what will be happening after today, and we'll speak to the legal directorate of the NDC, especially because the Electoral Commission has already published a notice of poll in the Memphis Central constituency without Joanna Kujo's picture. Stay with us here on the O Election Command Center. We're live on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale and on W93.5 in Wa and beyond. The Ghana Medical Association is also warning of rising alcohol abuse, sexual misconduct among doctors in the country. We have the latest in business and in sports as well. And we'll have the summary of the stories now. And Sarfoa Boying is here. What do we know?
Thank you, Alfred, and welcome to the news summary segment. Let's go to the details briefly. And the Supreme Court will, on Tuesday, November 12, 2024, deliver its landmark judgment on the controversial declaration of 4 vacant seats by Speaker of Parliament, Alban Gbagben. The court on Monday, November 11, 2024, postponed judgment to Tuesday after lawyers for Alban Gbagben were absent, in court. Also, a Memphis Central NDC parliamentary candidate Joanna Kujo is cleared to contest in the December 7 general elections after the 2nd D High Court's Commercial Division, presided over by Justice Jan Konto, vacated the injunction against her. This ruling comes after a series of allegations that questioned her eligibility. The court's decision allows her name and picture to appear on the Electoral Commission's ballot. Also, former President John Dramani Mahama has dismissed claims that he will cancel free senior high school program if he becomes president again. He described such comments as political gimmicks. Away from that, pressure group Election Watch Ghana has petitioned the Right to Information Commission, challenging the Electoral Commission's refusal to respond to an RTI, or Right to Information, request seeking details on the selection criteria of printing houses and evaluation methods for the December 7 election. And on to our last story, NPP presidential candidate Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia has announced that from December 1, dialysis treatment for kidney disease will be free under the National Health Insurance Scheme. This initiative aims to alleviate the financial burdens of over 15,000 Ghanaians who rely on costly dialysis treatments. Dr. Bawumia emphasized his commitment to improving healthcare access and supporting kidney patients across the country. And this brings us to the end of our news summary segment. And over to you, Alfred and Grace.
Sarfoa Boying, thank you very much. It's more news on 3news.com. Next some time I visit 3news.com. Let's get into the details of the stories now. And we have the latest coming through from the courts, because the dust has not settled yet as a path to declaring who is the right majority caucus in this 8th Parliament remains undecided, with the Supreme Court unexpectedly, in fact, moving the decision to have that declaration made to tomorrow. And by tomorrow, the Supreme Court is expected to make a final pronouncement on the matter. But even before that could take place, the presidential candidate of the NDC, John Dramani Mahama, has indicated that the controversy over the vacant seats in Parliament must be resolved politically and not through the legal means. He contends that if he was a president today, he would have engaged leaders of both caucuses in Parliament with relevant stakeholders to address the issue. But what he agrees to is that there must be a proper interpretation of the law to guide future occurrences, to clear the doubts when any member of Parliament crosses carpet or decides to go or contest independent. We'll soon engage legal experts on this. But first, let's take a listen to John Dramani Mahama speaking to members of the clergy in the Ashanti region earlier today.
Parliament and the Supreme Court, judiciary in the Parliament, Obia Ewoni Juma Oye. So I'm saying there's been a contest and friction between the two. Now maybe say we can solve it politically. The solution is not legal. If we say Supreme Court beats me on my decision, now Parliament, so I can say, yes, so a separate arm of government. And the way I'm giving here say, a political solution. Na Nina Jna opinion for and on my opinion some media, my dream is me on my opinion. Remember, I put case in the Supreme Court. No, my friend minority, my friend majority, and our leaders of party. Now, one majority and minority, Obiaso a majority. Now, my friend, leaders of two groups, you know, and as of opinion, Council of State, and the Speaker of Parliament, Akansa. No, did he say almost last year, Ombenya solution to Asema Ekoso. And so send a beya NC biom no. I was here share constitution ni biom. If you say and you many be wa clear e bi so a obi beka say ne o matro say ne o matro constitution mu ni meaning ne say and you many be wa clear e bi so a obi beka say ne o matro say ne o matro constitution mu the meaning they say, and I said the meaning they say.
That's John Dramani Mahama there, a flag bearer of the NDC earlier today when he addressed the clergy in the Ashanti region. But then again, there's one thing that's playing out. Well, the Supreme Court has set tomorrow, November 12, to give its judgment on the position of the law regarding provisions relied on by Speaker Alban Sumana Kinselbagwen to declare seats of 4 members of parliament vacant. The decision, which was made on October 27, has led to seeming tension between the Apex Court and the House of Legislature. Lord Edward Sari is our legal affairs correspondent, came to this report earlier today.
When the case was called, lawyers of the Speaker of Parliament failed to show up in court. At the last adjourned date, they had indicated that they would confer with their client and file their processes. The 7-member panel of justices presided over by Chief Justice Gertrude Tokonu proceeded the hearing of the substantive matter after recording the development and noting that the Speaker's lawyers had failed to file their statement of case and memorandum of issues. In his arguments for the interpretation of Article 97(1)G and H, Attorney General Dame made a case as to why decisions by members of parliament going into an election should not affect the composition of the House prior to the elections. He indicated that a previous decision by Speaker of the 7th Parliament was unconstitutional.
Especially this situation that we find ourselves in before the court had again occurred in Parliament, in the 7th Parliament. The Speaker of Parliament, just like the current Speaker, ruled that there had been a vacation of seat. My respectful submission on that point is that such ruling was erroneous. The ruling that affected the status of Honorable Isiama Maredi, I love because the gentleman suffered a lot.
Lead counsel for Afenyomak and Joe Gate also reiterated that the Speaker sidestepped his authority in declaring the 4 seats vacant.
We consolidate 1 to 4 deals with the vacation of office. At the memorandum 5 deals with whether the Speaker has the power to give the ruling he gave or not. And my submission that he does, and we addressed this sufficiently in our statement of case.
After hearing the arguments, Court President Gertrude Tokonu adjourn the proceedings and defer the judgments on the interpretation of Article 97(1)G and H to Tuesday. Lord Idwasari, TV3 News, Accra.
So that's Lord Edward Sari there, and this is what happened in Parliament and sometime last week when the Speaker, who had no choice than to, as it were, adjourn Parliament again. Senator, let's engage private legal practitioner Martin Pebo on the issues that have played out over the period. Ms. Counsel, good evening. Thank you for joining us here on Hot Edition.
Let me give it. It's a 10 minutes. Hello, good evening, Mr. Ocansey.
And it's good to have you. I mean, before we get into how the issues are played out over the period and what happened in court earlier today, the Speaker failed to submit a statement of case, I mean, in the Supreme Court regarding the legal dispute over the vacant parliamentary seats earlier today. In fact, there was this notable absence of representation from the Speaker's side in court. The case, as it played out today, previously directed the Speaker to file the required documents by Wednesday, November 6th, following a request for an extension by his legal representative, Thaddeus Sori. However, no statement was filed by the set deadline, and it raised questions over the Speaker's position on the matter. Legally, how does this strike you?
Yes, so this one, usually in matters like this, we have to hasten slowly. Considering that the Speaker's lawyer was there at the last sitting but wasn't present today, we would have to... Hello?
I can hear you clearly, sir.
Oh, okay. I'll go with the approach of Justice Amadou Tanko, when he asked Dr. Dami to reach out to lawyer Thaddeus Sori to find out if there was any problem. Yes, I think that's what we should do first before we make any comments. Otherwise, we'll be running ahead of ourselves. You go and say something and then it turns out that no, the comments we've made are not justified. So for now, this is what I would say, that we'll have to reach out to the Speaker and his lawyer to find out what caused the problem before we make any further comments.
And you recall that, and in fact, listening to Justice Tanko, which you made reference to today, asking Godfred Dami to reach out to Thaddeus Sori to find out why he did not file a statement of case today. If you recall, the Attorney General at the last sitting argued before the court that the Speaker's involvement was unnecessary, and that the Attorney General's office was authorized to handle matters involving constitutional interpretation on behalf of public officers. So really, what's the commitment in here?
No, that statement Godfred Dami made is not law. It's a very laughable statement. Sometimes, he's a politician, let's not forget. So he's wearing two caps. It's unfortunate. Ghana, we've allowed the politics to pervade the Attorney General's office, which shouldn't be. So sometimes when he makes those statements, see them as politics rather than law. There is a standing Supreme Court decision that says that the Attorney General, or let's say the independent constitutional bodies, are not bound to seek the services or representation of the Attorney General when there is a conflict of interest. So I'm talking about the case of Janet Okale Amagashi. I think that's Justice Amagassi's wife, the former Supreme Court judge, his wife. That is Attorney General, Speaker of Parliament, etc. Yes, so in that case, it's 2012 Supreme Court. So as far back as in the year 2012, the Supreme Court dealt with that matter. Said that when there's a conflict of interest, independent constitutional bodies do not have to rely on the Attorney General. They have to seek their own counsel. I know this case, there's a huge conflict of interest. Attorney General wants the 4 seats to be declared, the vacation, the ruling that there is a vacation of 4 seats. It's not in the interest of the Attorney General. He wants the Supreme Court to rule that the seats have not been vacated. Meanwhile, the Speaker says they've been vacated. So there's a conflict of interest. So there's no way the Attorney General can represent the Speaker in this case. So those statements he made, it was politics. It's unfortunate. We hope that as we grow, maybe we will, reduce the politics and then do things that advance the interests of the state more than our parochial political interests.
But with the current state of affairs now, that no statement was filed by this deadline by the Speaker's lawyers for and on behalf of the Speaker, judgment is expected to be delivered on this case tomorrow, all things being equal. Can there be any exception or any allowance of time again for the Speaker's lawyers to file their statement tomorrow, if so minded?
Yes, in law, but I'm answering theoretically. But whether practically it will happen is another one. So it's another matter. So we are talking about law, educating people. So there is what we call motion for arrest of judgment. Motion for arrest of judgment or application for arrest of judgment. So when a court is about to deliver judgment or a ruling, you can go to court and arrest it. When you say arrest it, in essence, it means you are praying the court not to give judgment because there is something left undone. So maybe you now want to file your documents. And of course, by then you would have filed a draft, etc., attach all of that to the application. So you can apply to arrest the judgment. That's talking about pure law. But so whether the court will grant it is also another matter. Your question is, can anything be done? Yes, on the part of the lawyers, the seeker's lawyer can apply to arrest judgment. But so whether the court will grant is another kettle of fish. But sometimes it's granted, yes. So it all depends on the reasons you give. It all depends.
So it boils down to a matter of discretion on the part of the justices.
Absolutely.
I see. But then it brings up another issue as in how today in court the Attorney General argued that Parliament can only be composed by election, either a general election or a by-election, and that the only time there can be a change in the majority and minority benches is after a general election or a by-election. Is that consistent with your understanding of Article 97 GNH?
No, not at all. No, not at all. So let's say that on this score, with those arguments being made, we can only say that, well, it's a democracy, so we are permitted to advance divergent opinions, but this one is not an opinion that finds favor of majority of lawyers. No, that's not it. If you vacate your seat, you vacated the seat, that's all. There can't be any other esoteric interpretation put on it. No.
I see, but the Supreme Court has been battered, especially on social media and even on traditional media commentary. However this ruling goes tomorrow, there'll be issues, obviously. But at what point does the mood of the nation, as you've always made reference to, public sentiment also play a role or be considered in a ruling of a sort?
Yes, public sentiment is a constitutional injunction. Yeah, in Article 125, let me see if I can read from my constitution. It says that justice emanates from the people. So the opinions that the public offer are also to feed into the Supreme Court decision, because the Supreme Court is not an island. They live with us. It's one society. So the ordinary man's understanding has to be factored in. At least when we say factored in, even if it cannot sway the judges, then they will have to write the opinion in such a way that it answers all the questions the ordinary man is asking. You see people saying that, but the people are in this current parliament. So how can you say the people, Isiama, Cynthia Mamle Morrison, Patiaka, and Kwadwo Asante, they are filing to contest relations with future parliament, so it has no bearing on this parliament. Yet the lay person is saying, so if it only affects future parliament, are you saying then that when they win the elections, assuming all these 4 people win, so on the 7th of January they are sworn in, and then immediately they lose their seats, and so we then go into a by-election. So even if the Supreme Court thinks that these questions that lay people are asking, and some of us lawyers also support, that's not the right interpretation, then they will have to write the judgment in such a way as to convince all of us. So you see how we say the expectations of the ordinary man have to be met. Yes, we are not saying that by hook or by crook, our interpretation should reign supreme. But if it turns out that the Supreme Court doesn't agree with us, then they will have to persuade us to show that the opinion we are holding it's not the right opinion. But we cannot just be brushed aside, because the more you read Article 97(1), J and H, then the more you see that, hey, this argument that is raised in future parliament is difficult to swallow. If the Supreme Court says yes, that's how they see it, then the explanation, they will have to take time, step by step, step by step and try to persuade those of us who are on the other side.
Counsel.
And so that is the thing about the fact that, yes, the expectations of the ordinary man will have to be met because it's there. Let's read Article 125, Clause 1. It says, justice emanates from the people and shall be administered in the name of the Republic by the judiciary, which shall be independent and subject only to this Constitution, blah, blah, blah. Then you see how lay people also participate in justice. You see they take part in the jury, so they serve as jurors, assessors, etc. Yes, so the ordinary man expects that his views be taken into account in the judgment that will be delivered tomorrow, at least by answering our concerns. Yes, that's this thing about future parliament. Look at it all over. And that most also especially, they should look at it. If today, Alfred Akrofi had filed to contest on the ticket of the NDC in the Wutu Efutu, would they still say that he should be leader of the NPP caucus in parliament? Or if turn it the other way, if Akrofi had filed to contest on the ticket of the NPP, are they saying that Akrofi should still maintain his position as leader of the NDC in parliament, etc.? So let's see how it goes tomorrow.
Certainly. Let's see how it goes tomorrow. And I thank you so much for your thoughts on this, Counsel. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Martin Pebu is private legal practitioner, one of the foremost human rights lawyers we have in this country. But let's flip from the legal perspective down to the political angle of this, because as has always been argued, Grace, this matter before Parliament has both the political and also the legal side of things. And it is the legal side of things that is playing out in the Supreme Court and expected the ruling tomorrow. But for politically, here's what John Mahama is saying, that if he were president today, he would get involved to have this matter settled out of court.
Parliament and the Supreme Court, judiciary in the Parliament, Obia Ewoni Juma Oye. So I'm saying there's been a contest and friction between the two. Maybe say, we can solve it politically. The solution is not legal. If we say Supreme Court beats me on my decision, now Parliament, so I can say, yes, so a separate arm of government. And the way I'm giving here say, a political solution. Na Nina opinion for any of my opinion some media, my dream sanka, me or my opinion. Remember, I put case in the Supreme Court. No, my friend minority, my friend majority, and our leaders of party. Now, we name one majority, name minority. We also a majority. Now, my friend, leaders of two groups, you know, and as of opinion, Council of States, and the Speaker of Parliament, Akasa. No, did you say almost last year? Ombenya solution to Asema Ekoso. And so send a beya in Sibium no. I was here share constitution Nibium. If you say and you many be a clear a bin so Obibeka say Neoma Troy say Neoma Tro constitution mu Nimin in the say and I said Nimin in the say.
That's John Dramani Mahama there, flag bearer of the NDC, and Dr. Jonathan Asantiocho is a senior lecturer, political science department, the University of Cape Coast. Appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us. Dr. Jonathan Asantiocho is a political analyst. Good evening. Thank you for joining us here.
Good evening, Alfred, and good evening to your listeners.
It's good to have you. Now, there are those who hold the view that to the extent that the president is an interested party in what is happening in Parliament and also playing out in the judiciary, his involvement may not necessarily bring the needed solution. But John Mahama thinks otherwise. Which side of the pendulum does your thought swing?
Well, Alfred, let me say good evening once again to your listeners and to your good self. I am one of those.
Hello? Hello, Doc? Unfortunately, we lost Dr. Jonathan Asantiocho. Try to raise him back on the telephone. Hello, Doc? We'll raise Dr. Jonathan Asantewotri back on the telephone for him to complete the point that he was making here on whether or not it would be a prudent decision in resolving this impasse between Parliament and the judiciary for the president to get involved to have the matter settled out of court if the solution doesn't lie with the court, as many have also posited. We'll have a conversation on this matter. Stay with us here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. We're also live on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale and beyond. We're live on W 93.5 in Wa and beyond. A number of you commenting on this matter. We'll go on to social media shortly. Read your thoughts and views, comments and opinions on this here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Dr. Jonathan Asantewotri is back on the line. You were making a point when I lost you.
Yeah, so what I was trying to say is the fact that, look, this is more or less like a political doctrine question. You do not invite the judiciary, to have their hands bent in this, because whichever way it goes, it has political ramifications and implications. It is for a good reason that they say there are checks and balances, separation of powers here and there. And if you remember what the Speaker said, where they are right or ambit in terms of their functioning and control, that is where theirs begins. That is where their nose begins. And so you could see that the Speaker has stayed up the course of pleasing this or pleasing that. So at the end of the day, he's just using parliamentary procedures as a way of delaying every process. That will not solve any problem. But what he wants, the message he wants to send out there, is the fact that you cannot use the judicial process as a way of tying the hands of the legislature behind them. They are not going to accept that. Now, the point is that this is something that I have said time without number. African Americans had created a monster that he himself is struggling to deal with. You thought nobody is speaking, and you felt that was the way to go because, I think that the courts have been passed so well, and whenever we go there, we're going to get justice. I ask myself, so the Speaker of Parliament, is he part of government or not? This is a number 3 person in this country. The Chief Justice comes as the fourth. Is it because the Chief Justice was appointed by the President and so he's a member of government or what? If that is not the case, on what basis should the Attorney General go out there when he's supposed to defend government? The Speaker is part of government, so to speak. Though internally he comes from the minority, but he's supposed to be impartial. So if in the strictest sense of the law and practice and practicality, he ought to have gone out there to defend the Speaker. He ought to have gone out to defend the Speaker. But because he's an appointee of the President, and this affects one arm as government, or in terms of the majority or minority, whichever way you look at it, he thought it convenient that he's going to defend the position of the executive and that of the other caucus of President, that is the MPP. I don't know whether that is prudent or is imprudent. And whichever way you look at it, it's problematic. The issues therein are too complicated that to seek a resolution of this through the law court or other court system. You ask yourself.
Well, but right.
It's a local program. Don't you have a simple ruling on it?
Dr. Asantewotri, so if the solution, as you argue, lies outside of the courts or the legal remits, as we're seeing, then should the president necessarily be involved in the process of finding a solution to this matter outside of the courts? Because there are some who make the point that he's an interested party in this. However this matter ends, it's going to directly or indirectly impact him as an individual and the presidency. Should he be involved?
Why not? You see,
and how?
And think that the Supreme Court is going to resolve this problem. I can tell you that Mr. Babin can use the same parliamentary process to frustrate the whole process of government business guiding to a halt. The MPP should be aware. You are aware that you don't have the numbers. Everybody is campaigning. Even if they grant you whatever that you think are supposed to be granted at the Supreme Court, practicalizing that will be very difficult. That's the more you need the other side. On the political divide in terms of parliament to ensure that things are done immediately. Alfred Akrofi told all of us when he gave his acceptance speech that he was going to use more of consensus building because he don't have the numbers. That is the reality. The speaker himself told all of us that it is not the case that the other side has already been frustrating government business. In fact, when you have about 6-7 MPs who are ministers out of parliament, there's nothing that they can do. There is nothing significant they can do. So it will always have to take the compromises, to take argument on the side of the majority, whichever way, to convince the other side to come on board. That for me is more political, parliamentary business than judicial. Now, you see, we have created a monster of our own selves. Today, we are saying that there is a certain number that constitutes a quorum. And it came about because of Justice Abdullah's question that it took the Supreme Court. So if in the ninth parliament, we have a similar parliament, how are they going to cope? That is something that Japan said. But it's too short. And calling on these people to be at the forefront, to ensure that the two sides don't know, they should not be as somebody holding someone by the scruff of the neck. You are politicians, you know each other, you've been friends over the years. This is the time you need to show maturity and leadership. This is not going to create, it's not about win-win situation. I'm saying that this particular problem can never be resolved entirely from a judicial perspective because the Boko conflict, we have a Supreme Court ruling on it. What is happening? Has it been resolved? No. Because whenever you have a situation which ought to be some kind of arbitration or alternative dispute resolution, when you go after legalistic form of answering or responding to that problem, they don't always solve the problem. This is a political question, and I believe that as they being politicians, they ought not to have invited the judiciary that ought to be impartial and always legalistic. But I'm still waiting to see what the Supreme Court will say tomorrow. Based upon that, I know the kinds of things that I'm going to say.
Certainly, we'll definitely be looking out at it as well. I appreciate your time. Dr. Jonathan Asantiotre is a senior lecturer, Political Science Department, University of Cape Coast, political analyst as well. Let's go into the election watch and matters arising.
Yes, Alfred, because pressure group Election Watch Ghana has petitioned the Right to Information Commission challenging the Electoral Commission's refusal to respond to an RTI request seeking details on the selection criteria of printing houses and evaluation methods for the December 7 election. Election Watch Ghana claims the EC's reluctance stems from a lack of access to these crucial details. The request filed under the Right to Information Act 2019, Act 989, is also grounded in Article 21F of the 1990 Constitution, which supports the public's right to access such information. The group is requesting specifics about the procurement process, including the date the tender was published, details of the companies that bid, and the criteria used in selecting the final contractors for the job. Election Watch Ghana believes that transparency in these matters is crucial given the significance of ballot printing to the electoral process. And we are working the phone to speak to Mark Ewusi Akon, who is the convener of Election Watch, to tell us why they are interested in the process the Electoral Commission used in selecting these companies and what it means to the conversation of trust and transparency on the part of the Electoral Commission and how voters are going to see this. So if Mark is joining me on the phone now, Mark, thank you for joining us. You seem very interested in knowing how these 7 printing companies were selected. Why is that so? Well, we don't have Mark on the phone. We'll connect to him so he tells us his part of this and why they are very interested in knowing how these companies were selected.
While we wait for Mark to join us, the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission received more than 12,000 complaints last year. Out of this figure, the Commission was able to deal with 95% of the applications. The PRC is set to deploy a team to the Gambia to help establish a viable complaints center to enhance utility regulation in the country. There's more in the following report. bring you details of that shortly here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7, also on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale and beyond. We're live on W 93.5 in Wa and beyond. And over 15,000 patients with kidney diseases will have their burdens alleviated in the next month. That's the promise of the new Patriotic Party presidential candidate, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. He said treatment for dialysis will be free for everybody in the country under the National Health Insurance Scheme from December 1. Judith Brown has more in this report.
Statistics according to the Renal Registry in Ghana show that over 90% of approximately 15,400 patients who require dialysis treatment are not receiving it. Statistics also show that approximately 13.3% of Ghanaians are at risk of kidney disease, with only about 1,195 patients currently receiving hemodialysis treatment. Until this year, dialysis treatment operated with a cash and carry system, with many patients unable to afford. The National Health Insurance Authority sought to change the narrative with the introduction of a policy providing free dialysis for persons below 18 and above 60, while those between 18 and 59 received subsidized dialysis. However, the policy since its inception in June 2024 faced a myriad of challenges with regards to delays in payments. According to the NHIA, however, the policy has already spent over 1.5 million cedis across 6 different hospitals, including the Kolebu and Komfo-Anokye teaching hospitals. But in a recent development, flag bearer of the new Patriotic Party on a campaign tour has promised free dialysis treatment for all starting December 1.
Kidney problems. Dialysis.
There are so many people suffering from kidney problems, so 6 months ago, we started the piloting of the free dialysis. We are ending the piloting, and so from December 1, all kidney dialysis patients will be treated freely under the NHIS.
Patients, and the National Health Insurance free.
This promise will possibly provide a significant step forward for patients and further alleviate their burden.
We pray that this is not just going to be mere promise. As they have promised, they are going to disperse the money, give it to the various hospitals or the dialysis unit, so that we wouldn't have a situation where the dialysis unit would tell us they've run out of consumables because government hasn't paid some monies to them.
We've lost a lot of patients. Some, even if they had sponsorship, TNT to come to the dialysis, they are not having money to come. So it's a good initiative for us.
And we thank God that they have added the dialysis fee to the health insurance scheme because we cannot afford it. It's very costly.
But the question remains, can government absorb the cost of free dialysis for all? Only time will tell.
Indeed, only time will tell. And talk about time telling and all. Let's go to the matters involving Dr. Bonaventure Agyemang.
And
what's happening?
Alfred, it is one story that even if nobody's interested in, our very own Johnny Hughes will be very interested in, because he's been on this issue for, as far as I can remember, for like 3 months. Every day on Johnny's Bite, he mentions Dr. Agyemang's name. So let's go straight to the story. The Upper East Regional Minister, Dr. Bin Salih Hafiz, has carried out directives from the Office of the Chief of Staff to remove Dr. Bonaventure Agyemang from office as Managing Director of the Irrigation Company of Upper Region. During a visit to the company, the minister announced the removal of Dr. Agyemang with immediate effect and introduced an acting Managing Director to the staff. Our Upper East Regional correspondent, Castro Senyala, has been following this issue for months and joins us with more on this. Castro, we know a lot was expected from authorities, especially after the agitated workers locked up the offices of the company some weeks ago. Craig, let us understand what happened today when the minister visited.
Right, so Grace, the minister's visit today was something that sort of came as a relief for the agitated workers and farmers in the irrigation scheme. They were jubilant. You could see that they were smiling because they knew that their protests would soon come to an end, and government was listening to them as far as their demands are concerned. And so, even before the minister arrived at the premises of ICOR, a lot of the farmers and then workers of the company had gathered to witness whatever was going to happen. The minister first of all arrived, engaged with workers of the company, engaged the security agencies who were present. And let me add that even before he came, the whole premises of ICOR was secured by policemen, numbering about 17 of them. When the minister came, he held separate engagements with the workers, and then he held the same engagement with the security agencies, and again called staff in, held another engagement with them before eventually calling all of them together and announcing that Mr. Charles Asana Aboyela was the new acting MD of the company. He said that even though Bonaventure wasn't at the engagement, the meeting, because several calls to his phone went unanswered and eventually the phone was switched off, he was making it clear that Dr. Bonaventure was no more the MD of the company, and he had been instructed to stop holding himself out as the MD of the company. When he said that, some jubilation broke out in the hall with workers clapping hands, farmers clapping hands, and jubilating, expressing happiness over the announcement. Shortly after the minister came out, I was the only journalist there, so I was able to, convince him to grasp an interview. And so let's listen to what he had to say as far as the removal of Dr. Bonaventure from office as MD of ICOR is concerned.
Yes, Kasha, we'll play that subsequently. But okay, we can listen to him now.
Indeed, I have informed the former managing director, Dr. Aligibam, but unfortunately, he is not here with us. But we will not allow an individual to truncate or slow down this process, because we must ensure that work goes on. So this afternoon, I came, met management as well as staff of ICOR, and I have introduced their acting managing director to them. It was easy because Mr. Charles Aboyela is a staff of this organization. Indeed, he is a management member, so it was not difficult introducing him to the staff. All that we expect that the narrative will change. ICOR has been in the news for the negative reason for a very long time. But with today, it is my expectation that anytime any issue come out from this place, it should be something that will be beneficial, not only to ICOR, but the region and the nation as a whole. ICOR was established for a specific reason, and because of the disturbances here, that was not achieved. But with this transformation, it is my expectation that a new leaf will be turned, and then that will augur well for the well-being of ICOR.
Kasha, so these farmers and workers, they have been protesting for close to almost a year now, and I'm sure obviously this removal must be bringing good news to them. What more have they been telling you?
Yes, what they said was that they were grateful to, first of all, the government for listening to their concerns. They also expressed appreciation to the Upper East Regional Minister, Dr. Bin Saleh Hafiz, for his intervention. They said that his intervention is what has inured to what they were witnessing. They witnessed today, and for that matter, they were grateful to him. Grace, let me also add that the workers did not mince words as far as showing appreciation to Johnny Hughes. Our very own Johnny Hughes was concerned. They openly, appreciated him for his efforts. They said he consistently hammered on this issue and brought it to the attention of authorities in Accra. And when they say authorities in Accra, they're talking about government. They said government is located in Accra, and so for Johnny Hughes to constantly hammer on the issue meant that he really liked them and he stood for nothing but the right thing to be done as a country.
Let's listen to what the workers have been saying.
Yes, thank you very much.
We want to express our gratitude to the regional minister, Dr. Hafiz bin Saleh, for the role that he has played in resolving this matter. It's been long-standing, but at the end of the day, finally, it has come. The new MD in an acting position in the person of Mr. Charles Asana Aboyela takes office immediately. We had hoped that Dr. Aligbam himself will be present here to do the handover as he promised the regional minister. Unfortunately, he didn't show up. But the regional minister has gone ahead to implement what he is supposed to do. That is, handing over to Mr. Charles Asana Aboyela to start work as acting managing director. And we are grateful to him. We think that is the best thing. It's in accordance with law and the company policy and our terms of engagement.
And Castro, this new MD, who is he? What does he bring on board? What has he also been saying?
The new acting MD did not have much to say because he was obviously very careful not to say things that would not augur well as a new manager. But then what he said was that he was going to ensure that he worked in collaboration with the staff, board and management of the company. He also assured to bring on board his expertise as someone who has worked in the company for more than 20 years. And he also said that, look, the issues of internal wrangling would not be part of his, tenure as MD of the company. He wished that the minister and that of the board would constantly monitor ICOR to ensure that it doesn't derail and ensure that farmers are served properly so that the company continues to support farmers to produce food for consumption both in the region and the nation at large. Let's listen to what he had to say.
All right, Castro, we'll have to bring the voice of the new manager in our subsequent bulletins. But thank you for bringing us those updates. It's obvious that all the biting Johnny has been doing on Johnny's bites hasn't gone in vain. There's been a new manager and then finally, the biting has bitten.
Dr. Bonaventure, Aligbam has been bitten.
Has been bitten. Castro, thank you for that update. Castro Sanyala,
thank you very much.
My colleague in the Upper East Reading, updating us on that. The farmers and the workers have been processing for close to a year, Alfred.
But does it not surprise you that the presidency gives a directive, right? That, look, vacate your position. And the man is still there for over a year.
For over a year.
I mean, look, it's not acting alone.
Well,
but right after this, we'll go for the business news, after which we'll tell you why the Ghana Medical Association is voicing out serious concerns regarding issues of alcohol misuse, drug abuse, and instances of sexual misconduct among some doctors in this country. Stay with us.
Is it doctor to doctor or doctor to patient?
We'll find the details in there. After this, stay with us.
Today, we thank you very much for your invaluable service to this great company, and we wish you well on your retirement. Cheers.
Thank you.
Happy retirement, Lay.
Thank you very much.
So are you staying or you are going back to Ghana?
I'm going back home, of course.
Wow. You really built?
I've got a home at Lakeside Estate.
Really?
Lakeside Hills is a dream come true, a community designed for all stages of life. Whether you're a growing family needing more space, a young professional looking for convenience, or someone seeking a peaceful retirement, Lakeside Hills has it all. With 2, 3, and 4 bedroom homes, there's something for everyone.
That's impressive. Exactly what I'm looking for. I have to start saving towards this.
See you back home.
Lakeside Hills, it's not just a place to live, it's a place to thrive.
2024 parliamentary and presidential elections. Kofi Akwalu Nsamna Tomitim ye. Media Matwamano.
Liberal Party of Ghana LPG presidential candidate they say. Or we never president ya. Wunya Juma Kura Busmibia. Na Bambe Chawuka 700 Ghana cedis. Akwadebia Baji 500 Ghana cedis. Afi $10 billion US. Job fund for young entrepreneurs. Now by 2028, now our fixed Ghana. Kapwenina.
Omadi Fidu Moche, Equanin Fiso, Kokwanemra, our Munya Jumano so will pay them unemployment benefits. Yet, say, Obia Juma, Banakachana Unano, it's nothing to write home about. It's a man of supplement.
University education free Wi-Fi for all schools and colleges, affordable housing and rental accommodation. Galamsey small scale mining and also obesity ye. Said by a answer Ghana. You was saying Naban for every marijuana for industrial use. It is a walk to Abanua, December 7th, presidential box on Shababia Kofi Akwaluda. Now I'm just Shagana.
Number 5. Yes,
Well, hello there, good evening and welcome to the business segment on Hot Edition. I am Michael Obudu. Coming up, Ghana Cocoa Farmers Association describes increase in price as election gimmick. Bring your details shortly, please stay. Well, thank you so much for your time. Straight into our top story. And the Ghana National Cocoa Farmers Association has expressed dissatisfaction with the recent increase in cocoa prices, calling it inadequate and suggesting it may be an election tactic. President Akufo-Addo announced that cocoa farmers would now receive 49,600 Ghana cedis per metric ton, a slight increase from the 48,000 cedis set as at the start of the season on September 1. Speaking to 3 Business, the association's president, Stevenson Anane Boateng, argued that this adjustment by the government indicates that a higher price for cocoa could have been offered earlier, reflecting a long-standing concern among farmers.
This one, we may term it as a Jekoto Abamame. Take it and vote for me. I mean, how should he sit down until now and he's giving us this money as an increase? When we heard the announcement, we were very, very annoyed, knowing very well that it can be increased. So now that he has increased it, what does it mean? It means that we should take the money and vote for them. But this is not political. Somebody who hear or listen to what I'm saying might think I'm talking about the political issue. This is not political. We cocoa farmers are also fighting for our interests and our welfare. Mind you, government does not own even the cocoa farm for which somebody will claim or say that we are doing cocoa business to help governments. No. We are doing the cocoa. Government does not give anything to support of our cocoa business. Government doesn't do anything. Cocoa board is there and we don't see the need of cocoa board being there because it does nothing for us.
So that was the president of the Ghana National Cocoa Farmers Association, Stevenson Anane Boateng, speaking there. Away from that, US-based Ghanaian economist Dr. Saad Idrisu is advocating for the establishment of an independent, centralized economic agency to facilitate business investments in Ghana. According to him, this move would streamline bureaucracy, reduce corruption, and ensure investments are evenly distributed across the country. His comment comes as Ghana has been ranked 6th in Africa as the most attractive investment destination in 2024.
Ghana seems to be doing quite good over the past decades in the economic performance line in comparison to other countries within the African region. But the operating environment lens is where we usually fall behind. And I think the way forward could be a way of establishing a centralized economic agency for the nation with local branches at every region, so that if an investor is interested in investing in the country, such an investor doesn't need to see the president, the vice president, or any government officials. All they need to do is to be able to reach out to the centralized economic agency at the national level, tell them the sort of investment that they have. Then it will be their responsibility to look through the regions and see where such an investment could be placed looking at the site, looking at availability to raw materials, looking at availability to roads and all that.
So here the US-based Ghanaian economist Dr. Saad Idris is speaking. Now finally, financial advisory partner at Deloitte Ghana, Yalate, has emphasized the need for Ghana to establish a long-term national development plan to safeguard against future economic shocks. He expressed disappointment that none of the political parties' manifesto considers a national development plan, stressing that Ghana can no longer rely on party manifestos for its development.
There's a strong correlation between your tax regime and the level of investment. And that has been demonstrated by the oil and gas regime. So in countries where the petroleum income tax is lower, there's higher investment in exploration. Exploration has gone down in most countries where they have increased taxes. So you increase your taxes, you achieve your tax targets in the short term, but investment declines. So we have to just balance it. For me, I think we have to think through a long-term development plan. A lot of the manifestos I've read, there is no reference to a development plan that we are all working towards. It's almost like we're introducing new things and then running around and making marginal progression. We have to have a long-term development plan. What that means, or what that would do for us, is that we build a resilient economy where if we are hit by any of the headwinds that hits us in the last couple of years, we will survive.
So that was Yalate. He is a financial advisory partner at Deloitte Ghana, bringing an end to the business segment here on Hot Edition. For more business stories, please check out our website. It's 3news.com/business. I am Michael Lobodu. Thank you for listening. As always, please stay safe.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to the sports segment here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. My name is Ori Kwampofo, and we'll be talking about the Black Stars. A lot has been going on in the past 12 hours concerning the team. The latest is that they've arrived in camp. Some players have arrived in camp and training has already started. But in case you missed it, some players are not set to show up in the camp. 8 of them actually have pulled out of the initial team released by Otoado. 25 of that players that he released, 8 of them would not be in the team, and those 8 are Inaki Williams, and then there's also Antoine Semenyo, there's Jerome Opoku, Jonas Ajete, Tariq Lamte, Alexander Jiku, Ibrahim Osman. All have not been they've not made a trip and would not be in the squad that faces Angola and then Niger. Bilishan is at the Accra Sports Stadium and just witnessed the first training session. Bill, how did the session go and what did you notice?
So basically the players went through a number of drills, like the passing drills and then the shooting drills. What I quite noticed was there wasn't much involvement for the 3 local based players. It was basically Kudus, Pidio Mensah, Elisha Usu, and Osman Bukhari engaged in the drills where Jojo was the only goalkeeper in the side. But it was mostly calm. Otoado he had all smiles on his faces. He was, chatting with some of the technical staff, chatting with some of the players. He looked really, really calm really collected during this training session. And for now, it looked good. Nobody has an injury, as I've seen. And so we are waiting to see what happens in subsequent sessions.
How was the attendance like? Because this was open to the public.
Yeah, not many people came in. It was basically journalists who came to watch. And I've spoken to some of them. They are not feeling so confident because of the number of players who have withdrawn from the squad. They feel they have some importance. They are key to the side, and that will affect their chances. And Gideon Mensah just joined us here, so we're about to have an interview with him.
Thank you very much, Bill. You focus on the interview with Gideon there. So just by way of update, the Black Stars just finished their training session at the Accra Sports Stadium. That's the first training session. As I mentioned, 8 players would not be making the trip, but Osman Bukari, Rasford, Yeboah Konixdorf, Afonso Namankwa, Terry Egbe, Ebenezer Annan, and Kingsley Schindler have all been drafted to the team to replace those 8 players who would not be making the trip. As Bill mentioned, Kudus, Gideon Mensah, Osman Bukari, Elisha Owusu, Emmanuel Enki, Razak Simpson, and Isaac Afo were present at the team's first session. They'll continue to train tomorrow, and then they fly to Angola on Wednesday, Luanda, before they do face them on Thursday. Remember that the only way the Black Stars can qualify for the 2025 AFCON is if Sudan lose both games and Ghana win both games. Sudan would face Niger and Angola. Ghana would face Angola and Niger. And so that's just by way of update here on the sports segment on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. My name is Oreo Kwampofo. If you're after some more sports stories, you can follow us on social media at 3SportsGH. But the program continues right after this.
Welcome back. This is Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Let's do some other stories now. We know that there's been some conversation about the environment, election, and climate change and what this means to the environment. Let us have a conversation on COP28, which we know is currently underway. What are the experts saying? What will this mean to the conversations and initiatives that experts have already held out? What new is COP29 talking about? What happened to the resolutions in COP28? What new is COP29 going to be about? Well, let's enter into that conversation. And the UN has warned that 2024 will be the hottest year on record as its annual climate conference begins in Baku, the capital city of Azerbaijan in Europe. World leaders from around 200 nations are due to appear over the next 2 weeks at COP29 in oil-producing nation of Azerbaijan. A particular focus will be how countries plan to limit long-term global temperature rises to 1.5 Celsius. While this year has seen average temperatures 1.5 Celsius above the pre-industrial area. The UN says the vital target has not yet been breached. Meanwhile, civil society groups Environment in Ghana want potential parties to provide a clear roadmap of their government's plans in addressing climate change in the country. When given the nod, the group says that Ghanaians will be able to hold the various political parties to their word if they provide a document on their plans on tackling climate change. The environmentalists, as part of a project titled Connecting Communities, Climate and Politics for Tomorrow, say after a review of the manifestos of various parties, there's no clear path about how they are going to enforce the environmental laws to deal with climate change. Charles Smith is project coordinator, Connecting Communities, Climate and Politics for Tomorrow. He's running as Charles. Why is it necessary for political parties to spell out their policies about climate change?
Thank you very much. So, as you rightly said, COP29 just started, and climate change, the environment, is something that affects all of us, or something that concerns all of us. And for us, it is not enough for the political parties to just have these things in their manifestos written down, but we want them to come out and then talk about them on their platforms like they are doing with their flagship programs. Because at the end of the day, if people are not safe, if our environment is not that conducive for our health, for anything that we do, then any other thing that we plan as political parties will not achieve the necessary result that is needed. So that is why we need them to come out and then speak to the issues. And again, being on the field, at least we've roamed about 5 regions out of the 10 regions, interacting with fishermen and then farmers. And we could clearly pick from them that yes, indeed, the political parties come around and interact with them, but none of them has ever talked to them about climate change or the environment and what we're doing to protect the environment that they work in, or to address some of the climate change issues that we have been confronted with as a country. So that is the main reason why we, under the Connecting Communities, Climate for Politics and Politics for Tomorrow, is calling on these political parties to be clear. They should be clear with us. They should open up and speak about these issues like they are talking about, or they are speaking about their flagship programs as well.
And Charles, you say these parties seem not to have policies about climate change. We are just 25 days away from the election. Isn't your call rather coming in too late?
Well, it is not too late because we didn't want to just analyze the manifesto, but we wanted to also get in touch with the people. And fortunately, this also clashed with the COP29. So we are looking at how we can make our environment livable, an environment that we can live in. And that is why we want to use this opportunity to also call on them, let them know that it is not too late for them to mount their podiums and talk about the issues. We know that the leading political parties in the last few days or weeks have been engaging a number of stakeholders. This is the time for them to also mount the podium and then tell us exactly what they'll be doing to protect the environment for us. Because this is where we live and we don't have any other planet B. This is the only planet that we have. Once we destroy it, that ends it.
So, Charles, Ghana is signatory to the Paris Agreement with the targets for carbon emission. Do you think the country has done enough to take us closer to that target? What more would you be looking forward to, especially as COP29 conversations begin?
Well, so one of the key things that we'll be doing at the COP29 is for Ghana to submit its climate action plan for 2025 onward. And one of the key things that we expect is to see how best plans we put in place once we set our forest reserve to work on this emissions that we are talking about, so that like the UN says that 2024 will be the first year, we would be able to work on that. So we are expecting a plan, and not just a plan, but one that comes with an action policy or an action plan as well, so that we will be able to implement it to the latter. And we're also expecting that the country will be able to come out with programs or policies that will try to help reduce the emission of certain gases in our air.
All right, Charles, thank you for speaking to us. Charles Smith is project coordinator connecting communities, climate and politics for tomorrow, and they are making a call on all political parties to make clear what roadmap they have in tackling issues of climate change and its impact on the environment. They say that they have been going through the manifestos of the various political parties and they have not seen anything when it comes to climate change, the environment, and how it can be protected for future generations.
Grace, to some of the stories, and one that we give our listeners a hint of before the business news, the Ghana Medical Association has voiced serious concerns regarding issues of alcohol misuse, drug abuse, and instances of sexual misconduct among some members. The association's president, Dr. Frank Serbo, highlighted that such behavior puts patient care at risk as affected doctors continue to work daily. Now, speaking at the Ghana Medical Association's annual general meeting, Dr. Sebo noted that the association is facing multiple lawsuits of allegations of medical and professional negligence, underscoring the need for action to correct these issues.
Professionalism in the health sector, Brittany, is there so much focus on greed and selfishness? Recently, the junior doctors are holding various forum or fora, and they are indicating that we are bullying them. Is it true? But at least all of us can attest to the escalation of lateness to duty, absenteeism, poor documentation, and also not dedicating enough time to our employers. People walk into the hospital at 9, by 12, they are walking out. You ask them, they say they are done. And yet they expect to be paid for working 8 hours at least in a day. We have some health personnel who are involved in alcoholism, drug misuse, and abuse.
He added that there have been severe cases of sexual harassment by health workers, and with many complaints still under review by the Medical and Dental Council,
which affect the quality of their lives. There has been, in extreme circumstances, reported case of sexual harassment perpetrated by health workers. And yesterday, the Medical and Dental Council Registrar, Dr. Divine Baibala, told us that there are a lot of pending cases of sexual harassment even before the council. There have been several legal suits against health facilities with outcomes not being favorable to us as health workers. Indeed, sometimes we are left off the hook simply because the victims of our unprofessionalism choose to blame the witches and the wizards, as well as the fearful, for their predicament instead of taking on the system.
That's Dr. Frank Serboa, the president of the Medical Association of Ghana. So there you have it. The doctors who are caught up in these issues of sexual harassment, they are blaming the witches and wizards. And they're fearful for what they are doing, Grace. I mean, well, we'll see how things play out with respect to the investigations into this matter.
And do you think that there are lots of pending cases before the council? It makes it a bit worrying, Alfred.
Indeed, it does. And there's elections weeks away, Grace. And if you do the countdown beginning today, you cannot agree with many who would put it at 25 days, Grace. And it's
25 days.
It's closer than you think.
Yes.
Now, there's a lot of anticipation. The latest Global Info Analytics poll suggests only 28% of voters approve of President Akufo-Addo's performance, while a resounding 65% express disapproval. Now, the discontent, according to Global Info Analytics, is widening, touching nearly every region of the country, except the Ashanti region, where majority still stand behind the president. But outside of his stronghold in crucial swing regions like Central, Western, and Greater Accra, disapproval is high. Here in the Greater Accra region, we're going to put a few slides on the screen right now for the benefit of those who are watching us on Facebook. An overwhelming 7 out of 10 citizens express frustration with the current leadership. Now, what might this mean for the election itself? If today elections were held today, the data points in one clear direction: a lead for John Dramani Mahama, the former president and candidate of the NDC. According to the poll, John Mahama, if elections were held within the period that this poll was conducted, would have polled 52% of the votes amongst those who were surveyed. as against Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, coming through with some 41.3%. Now, Musa Dankwa is the Director of Global Info Analytics, joining us on the telephone. Musa Dankwa, appreciate your time here on Ghana Tonight. Whenever this poll comes out, we're looking at the headline statistics of 52%, 41.3% amongst the persons who were surveyed. But what's the underlying issue? What's the story in there? Hello, Mr. Dankwa. Sorry, we lost Mr. Dankwa on the... Hello, can you hear me? Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Perfect.
Yes.
Now, yes, you were making a point, but I couldn't hear you.
Yes, what I was saying is that if you look at the polls that we just released, there are key things that are driving the polling numbers. One is the performance of the president, which we can see has sunk very low, next to the lowest since 2022 April. That is dragging the numbers down for the ruling party's candidate. And two, the people are still saying that over 50% of them, in fact, are telling us that their living conditions economically have gotten worse compared to the last 12 months. And they always put economy on top, followed by the job, and recently education is being elevated. So these are the top three issues. And if you look at the education, I think even though the free education is a plus, the problems or the teething problems appear to be a drag and affecting people's perception about the program, and that doesn't help the ruling party.
I see. Now, even with the regional breakdown, and you see even amongst the gender breakdown, you see a lot more both male and female all deciding to, if elections were held within the period, vote for John Dramani Mahama. But in fact, you see John Mahama's influence felt in 13 out of the 16 regions, leaving only 3 for Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. I recall in your previous poll, we had 12 out of the 16 regions that you selected samples from, all deciding to vote for John Dramani Mahama. So if this is anything to go by, that's an increase of an additional region. Now, and which region is that?
That is Bunu region. In the previous one, the Bunu was too close, about 47-46. Now there's a decisive lead for Mahama in the Bunu region. So he has added Bunu to his column now.
And you're saying that nothing significant is going to change between now and election day?
Look, Alfred, 82% of the respondents say they've already made up their mind. 82%. 7% say or saying that they may change their mind. 7%. And 11% were neutral about changing their mind or not. So you can see that the data clearly shows that people have already taken their positions and they've locked their votes. The chances for changing minds are very small. Now, if you look at those who are even seeing they are undecided, look, their perception about the economy is very dire. More than 70% of them are telling us that their living condition has gotten worse. So if these guys finally decide to vote, they are very unlikely they will vote in mass for the ruling government because the economy is the top issue.
I see. And the economy being the big one, and how about the respondents in the Ashanti region? Why, even though the economy is a big one, is still the approval rating for Nana Akufo-Addo was really high there?
You can't entirely eliminate loyalty to MPP from Ashanti region. I mean, Ashanti region is more loyal than any region. Indeed, if you look at the Eastern region, they are even disapproving the president, whereas Ashanti region is approving him.
I see. And it will see the trend also on the flip side in the swing regions.
Yes, the swing regions is quite decisive. The central region, the western region, and Greater Accra, they are very decisive. And if you look at the polling numbers, in fact, Mahama is extending his lead in the swing regions, which should not be the case as we approach election. It simply means that if care is not taken, I think there will be a bloodbath in these regions for the MPP.
Mr. Dankwa, I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Mr. Dankwa, Executive Director of Global Info Analytics. If you go on our Facebook page, you see it there. The People's Choice Presidential. If elections were held between November 8 and 10, that's the period that this poll was undertaken. 52% of the respondents said they were going to vote for John Dramani Mahama. Just a little over 43% saying they were going to vote for Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. Grace, what more?
Well, Alfred, still on election-related issues, Justice Jan Kunto of the Secondary High Court has ruled in favor of Joanna Jan Kuju, vacating the injunction that's previously prevented her name and picture from appearing on the Electoral Commission's notice of poll. This decision comes after a heated argument between lawyers for both the plaintiffs and defendants. As a result, the Electoral Commission is now required to immediately add Joanna Jan Kuju's name to the notice of poll, paving the way for her to contest in the upcoming elections. The lawyer for the first defendant, Ejuji Kujo Tamaklo, emphasized in an interview that now that the injunction has been lifted, the Electoral Commission should do the needful.
Yes, we want to thank the courts. I will say more. The Electoral Commission rep is in court. He is aware the court has vacated the injunction. The basis on which they disqualify Joanna Jan is based on the injunction order. Now that the injunction has been vacated, Jane Mensah should do the right thing. I will say no more.
Well, meanwhile, an obviously relieved Joanna Jan Kujo, who is now the NDC's parliamentary candidate for Amenfi Central, is urging her supporters to remain calm and continue their campaign efforts despite the recent challenges.
That has happened today, especially also my new lawyers who came in to rescue me, because we've been going back and forth and everything, but this new lawyer stepped in to make sure that everything has gone well. And then we all know that sometimes people that your fathers or mothers were assigned to you, and some of these people are the same people behind everything. So the things that we've been through, I cannot go into details, but what I can say that I thank God and all the NDC members in Amenfi Central, branch executives, constituency executives, all the Western Region NDC people, in fact, regional executives, coming home, and we are going to do our campaign lunch, and after the campaign lunch, then so I know that the people are waiting for me and they are happy. So I want to tell them that they should just go and find something to eat and drink and be happy.
Well, Joanna Jan Kujo is the NDC's parliamentary candidate for Amenfi. Let's go to the quarters of the NPP. An NPP flag bearer, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, has promised to upgrade the hospital and other infrastructure in the Bosomche constituency. Addressing party faithfuls at the Bawumia Community Connect, the NPP flag bearer appealed to the people to vote for him. We can listen to him now.
Adi se adi ahiamo yebeya kwanya mamo minim se muhia astrotef baako ewa ha yede bebremo yede astrotef no ebebremo minim se hospital nana akanchire me se hospital no mu pesa ya upgrade hospital emamo yebe upgrade hospital yi amamo Lanana asre adie se muhia nursing training college ewa kuntasia erin district capital yebebremu nursing training college la ya ye mo inner roads no so amamo ye di mpuntu mamo mon fastiano emami mon fastiano emami.
Presidential candidate of the New Patriotic Party, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, there emphasizing the fact that Ghana for Emfastiano Mano because he's going to do well if he wins the 2024 December elections, Alfred.
Well, that's how we end campaign trail on your election command center. Join me and the rest of the team at 10 p.m. on TV3 for Ghana Tonight. It's also live on 3FM 92.7. I am Alfred Akrofi.
My name is Grace Hammoah Agyemang. Thank you for spending the last 90 minutes with us. We're back same time tomorrow. Good evening and enjoy the rest of our programs.